Superstition. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or do you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, "May I have your attention, please," do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Monday to you. Today is Monday, October 3rd, 2016. This is episode number 16 of Pause, Think, Consider. Thank you for tuning in today to listen to the program. For those of you that have joined us on Facebook and have commented, shared, liked our posts, our episodes, other information we have shared in regards to additional information about each episode, thank you. For those of you that have not joined, please go onto Facebook. You can reach us directly by going to facebook.com/pause.think.consider, and please become a part of the conversation. Today's episode is about the concept of time. The concept of time. There's several different ways that we can approach this, and I'm going to try and look at as many of them as possible with the time that we have today. It's interesting because time, when you're younger, you want it to go quickly. Typically, you have more things that you're looking forward to. I can't wait until I'm older, I get to do X. I can't wait for this event to come up. For example, becoming 16 and being able to drive. Or getting to summer vacation. Or starting your next grade. Going off to high school. Going off to college. These are all events, life-changing events, for some of them, that you look forward to. And yet, it seems as you get older, and those milestones become less and less frequent, you want time suddenly to slow down, and you want more of it. Often wishing you had time back. You've probably heard the saying of, I'm going to make up sleep. I'm going to make up sleep. My personal opinion, it's not possible. It's not possible. That whatever has passed, the time that has passed, you can't make that up. And so, for example, if I've gotten 5 hours of sleep the past week, and I want to make up for 8 hours, that's essentially saying that I'm going to sleep an extra 3 hours, an extra 15 hours, in order to make up a week's worth, a weekday, a full weekday. I slept 5 hours, and I want to make up to 8. That's 15 extra hours that I need to make up. So I essentially would have to get 8 hours for the next 3 days. But in reality, that's not generally possible. And in fact, we try and get it all in one day or all in a weekend. We live for weekends the older we get. When we're younger, perhaps we're looking forward to the weekend. We have our sporting events. We have our activities. We have more free time to spend with friends. Maybe go on a trip. And these things, you can start to see the difference in perceptions from being younger versus being a little bit older. And you hear all the time from elderly, older, potentially retired. I wish I had your youth. I wish I had all the time. You have all the time in the world. All the time in the world. It's another saying that's thrown around quite a bit. All the time in the world. As if to say that in comparison to the individual who's saying that they don't have all the time in the world. That the amount of time that they have available to them, far different. I would venture to say that each individual has just the same amount of time available to them as anyone else. We're all afforded 24 hours in a day. What we choose to do with that time is completely up to us. Some people are more efficient than others. Some people are more effective than others. Some people are able to accomplish more things with their time. As a result, they're able to do more things. And so the perception of being younger and being able to accomplish more things because you're faster, you have more energy, is often perceived by older people. And yet, when you're younger, in comparison to somebody who's retired, you have less responsibility when you retire. You no longer have a job if you choose to. Your entire day can be structured in the manner in which you want to, versus somebody younger. Their time is more divided. They have family time. They have their job. They have their commute to the office. And when you're even younger and you go to the schooling days, you have even less time. And when you're in the moment, when you're physically going to school, you don't realize. You don't realize until you're on the precipice of going into college. Or it's on the edge of that next leap. I can remember whether it was elementary or middle school or high school or college, each one, perception seemed to afford more freedom. It has seemed to afford more time available. With elementary school, it was a single classroom, typically. Sometimes you would break out for a subject. I know in my school in particular, we'd go to the library for a computer class. For my math class, all of the different fourth grade classrooms, all of the different fourth grade teachers each taught a different level, and so you would mix up. But aside from that, you're primarily in one room, in only one room. And then middle school, you start having periods. You start having separate subjects, and each period is a separate subject. And then in high school, you actually start even earlier. Now school is starting, for me, when I was doing the jazz band, it was up at 5:30 in the morning, band practice at 6 a.m. For middle school or elementary, you're not starting till 8 o'clock. That's an extra 2 hours. You're done with school by 3 o'clock. Sports practice is 3:30, 4 maybe. You could be home, done with everything by 4 or 5 o'clock. That's why a lot of kids in high school have the ability to then work. You go to school for the full day, and then maybe you help out at the farm. Maybe you go down to the local grocery store. Maybe you help out at a local restaurant. And you work. Because you now have more time afforded. It's broken down even further. And then your mind is blown when you make that leap to college. Or for those that choose not to go to college, it's an even bigger shakeup. Because going to college now, at high school, you've started earlier, and you are afforded more time. You have more options with how you can leverage it. More electives, more choices. You still have your core competencies, a lot of which you've been identified and have been established in middle school. But now, high school, you have even more choices. You're afforded even more freedom. Now, you can actually go off campus for lunch. You have students that are driving, that may even go home. Your younger years, the only time you went home was if you were sick, you had the day off, or you were going home for the day because school was over. There's even people that have an entire period off. They have the period off, it's a break, and so for some people, maybe they use that for work. Maybe they use that for a different project. Maybe they just used it because they didn't want to be at school. And so every other day, maybe every day for one term, you get to sleep in. But now you go off to college, and you have complete freedom. Going for a particular degree, there's going to be a certain class schedule. Certain classes are scheduled, but the world is your oyster with how you divide and how you leverage your time. Now you've only got classes potentially Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You have entire days of your week that are free. You can choose what to do. And for those, if you go from the change of from high school to straight into the workforce, it feels like total freedom. You no longer have anyone telling you when you have to do your homework or what you have to read. There's no dictation. How you choose to divide and leverage your time is now your choice. And your choice is, I'm going to work 40 hours in a work week now. 8 hours of those 24 hours are going to be at work. So I've got 8 hours at work. I've got, let's say, 8 hours of sleep. So there's 16. I've got another 8 hours. A whole 8 hours. Versus in high school, you're going from 6, let's just say from 6 to 5 because you have activities. That's almost 12 hours right there. Almost half your day is completely dependent on school. 12 of the 24, roughly, on school. So now, if you are getting a solid 8 hours of sleep, you've got 4 hours. So you have essentially doubled the amount of time that you have available to you. And I think for those of us that have been in the workforce for so long, it's hard to realize that really, if we go back to our younger years where, oh gosh, I wish I could go back to the high school days. It was so much easier. So much easier. I didn't have all these responsibilities. I didn't have these goddamn bills. I just wish that I could go back. I felt like I had more freedom. If we go by the numbers, though, you actually have more freedom now. You actually have more freedom now. For some people, they work more than a 40-hour work week. Other people, they work part-time. A lot more choices, though. It's dependent on how much of a living you want to make. How much income do you actually need? And so, how we break down a day, a week, a month, an entire year is completely different for each and every individual and completely different at each and every point in our life. So the question is, what's the most efficient? What's the most effective? What's the most beneficial way that we can break down time? The simplest way that I look at it is it comes down to sacrifice. Sacrifice is this big, bold, this very ominous word of, it has a very manly connotation to it, one full of confidence, almost posturing, a little bit of ego involved. Sacrifice. It's like a badge of honor. Sacrifice. How much time are we willing to sacrifice? Perhaps you're willing to sacrifice some of your sleep time. Perhaps you don't need 8 hours. Someone like my father, he goes to bed at roughly 9 o'clock and he's up at 2. The man gets 5 hours of sleep. Now, he has his spells of being tired, but 5 hours. You look at someone like my father, it probably doesn't even feel like a sacrifice to him. Maybe it does, but he's been doing it for so long. I know I've talked to him and leading up to his retirement coming up here in June. And he is so looking forward to waking up at a normal time. And he does it. When we go on vacation, he's up at 6, 7. He's not up at 2. Maybe he's up at 5, 6. But if you make that sacrifice, I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there, they sacrifice time. They're exchanging would be another way to look at it. Instead of sacrifice, exchanging. More positive connotation. Very transactional. A give and take. Versus sacrifice feels like you're just giving up in hopes of return. But what is it that we are willing to exchange? How much time are we willing to exchange? As I said, entrepreneurs are willing to exchange and give up time in exchange for freedom, in exchange for monetary gains, in exchange for success, notoriety. So, what are you willing to sacrifice in relation specifically to time to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish? To give you an example, in starting this podcast, in getting this off the ground. For me, the sacrifice, the exchange was sleep. It was really doing anything around the house. I cooked, not really any cleaning. Aside from playing the occasional pickleball game, not very much outside time. But I personally viewed that as a fair exchange. The ability to get this up and running within a week's time was worth it. Now, not all the time does it work out in our favor. Not all the time do the sacrifices of your time merit what you gain. How you leverage your time for what you gain is the bottom line. That is the yay or nay in terms of favorability. You look at professional athletes and their stories and what they go through. No different than professional musicians or business owners or celebrities, and how they leverage their time and how much of their time to reach their goals and aspirations. These are individuals that at a very early age. Great example is somebody like Tiger Woods. And he has a lot of negative publicity right now in the media for various reasons. However, he's a great example of somebody at a very young age that sacrificed time. That sacrificed time that he could have been with friends, or he could have been traveling, or he could have been just being a kid. But his father had a golf club in his hand from the diaper days. It's something like age 3. But he's arguably one of the greatest golfers of all time. You could debate to put yourself in Tiger's shoes. I wouldn't do that. Not worth it. For you, how you break down and how you choose to leverage and use your time, it's your personal choice. But I challenge you to look at how you're leveraging your time and what you're getting out of it. I've found on a personal level, I talk to people about, the years have just flown by. Gosh, I was 30 years old. Next thing I knew, I was 50. Enjoy it. Enjoy it because it goes really, really fast. I've heard my parents say this, my father in particular, all the time. Enjoy your youth. Enjoy the experiences that come to you. Do as many different things as you possibly can because eventually it's over. You have responsibilities. You turn around, you realize, I'm old. I wonder if there's other people. I wonder if there's other people that are in the same mindset that I have. And that mindset is years feel like centuries, and centuries feel like lifetimes. I graduated from college in 2009, not even 10 years ago, and it feels like a lifetime ago. High school, 2004, 12 years ago, a lifetime. Middle school, elementary school, lifetimes. Are there some years in there in particular? And I will find the clip because it's one of my favorite movies. I talked about it before, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Blazing Saddles previously. So I'll link to those as well. The Jerk by Steve Martin. And Steve Martin has this great bit that goes along with time. His great bit that talks about his relationship with Marie. And how time feels like it's longer than it really is. And I'll link to it so that you get the exact semantics of the timing. But it's something like, the first day that we were together, that felt like 2 weeks. And then the second day, that felt like 7 days. And then the third day, well, that just felt like a day. But then the fourth day, that felt like 9 days. And then the fifth and the sixth day, those were just like 3 days each. But it's that whole concept of time feeling longer than it really is or shorter than it really is. And what is it about for certain individuals that time feels like it's just passing by? And it's going so goddamn quick. Yet for others, like myself, years feel like centuries. And decades feel like lifetimes. I've only been around for 3 decades. In comparison to a lot of people in my lives, it's not very much time. And yet, perhaps it's because of my memory. And having the ability to look back on memories that happened when I was very, very young. Still recalling riding my bike in Valley Stream, New York, when I was 3 years old and hitting the curb and absolutely eating shit and obliterating my face. Or falling down the stairs at my parents' first home, getting a black and blue eye. This is all age 3. And for other people, they'd say, oh, there's no way. There's no way. I had a conversation with my father in the parking lot the other week. And he made a comment, Jesse, that was 25 years ago. I don't know what the hell I was doing yesterday. 25 years. My brain's just mush right now. It's not all there. And in that moment, it made me realize. And while my father has an amazing memory. Amazing. He can remember things that I wish I remembered. But when you start to forget and you can't remember memories, I believe that is when time seems to be going quicker. Because we're not able to relationally, spatially, feel how far ago that was. It just feels like a really long time ago. If we're not able to actually remember anything from our childhood, then it feels like it just passed us by even faster. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's just a perception. Is that if we're not able to remember moments that happened early on in our lives, then it feels like it just flew by. But if I can remember age 3 memories on through to yesterday, 3 to 30, anytime before that, there might be a moment in there when I was having M&M cookies with Grandpa upstairs in our duplex. He lived upstairs, having Keebler Elf M&M cookies, watching The Hobbit. It's probably 1988, maybe 87. And I distinctly remember that. I remember some other things about. That might have been even age 2. Anytime before that, no memories. But if I can remember all the way back then, that's a span of 27 years. 27 years of memories. I challenge that for those that have more. You're 60 years old and you can remember back to age 3? 57 years? An extra 30 years? I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Can't even imagine. That would feel like multiple well, I already feel like I've had at least 3, if not more lifetimes. I'd feel like I'd been reincarnated to a dog, a cat, a gerbil, and had about 3 human lifetimes on top of that. That's going to feel like you've really been through something. You've been through a lot. So I think it's important. It's important to leverage, utilize our memories. Because without that, time feels like it's passing us by. Time feels like it escapes us. And then we don't know what we should use, how we should leverage it. What's a positive sacrifice versus what's a negative sacrifice? And what do we gain? We can't look at the pros versus the cons. We're not able to decipher how we can be the best person we want to be. So we can look back a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and look at the decisions and the decision-making process that we made today, Monday, October 3rd, 2016, and understand and realize the ramifications of the choices we made and how they have affected us. Some of those choices, some of those sacrifices, benign, unable to detect how they actually have affected us. But they affect us. Oh, they affect us. What we did when we were younger affect us today. Hear all the time from, I wish I ate better. I wish I exercised more. I wish I didn't drink as much. I wish I spent more time with my family, etc. So what you do today impacts you not only for tomorrow, but for the future. And when you're young, you don't generally think of those impacts. You don't think about how those sacrifices, or lack thereof, affect your long-term or short-term behavior. You're unable to decipher how it's going to affect you. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Living in the moment and making the decisions, the best decision that you can possibly make, given the information that you have. Now, some people, every single day, they make decisions that cost them gravely. For some individuals, it even costs them their lives. The choices and the sacrifices of how they chose to leverage their time. Far different than you and I of today. So I asked the question, what are we doing on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, and annual basis to make ourselves the best we possibly can be in leveraging our time the best possible manner? What do we choose to sacrifice? What are we exchanging our time for in relation to what we gain? Is what we're putting our time towards getting us exactly what we want? Is it a longer term? Is it something that you have to plant the seeds and water and nurture and give it sun? And this is a long-term sacrifice that you are building up. You won't see or reap the rewards for years down the road. It's like saving for retirement. Setting up an IRA, putting in the $5,500 every single year. For some people, they can't do it. They won't do it. How compounding interest works in your favor. The market's always going to be up and down, but that consistent $5,500 every year for 45 years. Even if you just take the principal, not even the interest. I mean, you're hoping from an interest standpoint, you're gaining 6 to 10%. It's hard to see in that moment, though. It's hard when you've got bills, when you've got a family, when you've got mouths to feed, a roof to put over your head, to make the sacrifices paycheck to paycheck, to know when you reach the retirement age that you're set. You don't have to worry. Whether Social Security exists or not, whether you have a pension or not, irrelevant. And that only comes with leveraging your time, sacrificing for a long-term gain. But you can't make all sacrifices for long-term gains. There's got to be some things that are in the moment that are for now. There's got to be that balance. What that balance is for you, completely different from what it may be for me. Maybe completely different for your friend or family member. It's unique to each individual. But the important thing is to break it down, to personally break it down and look at and analyze, what are you doing with your time? How are you sacrificing it? In exchange, what are you gaining for it? I want to thank everybody for listening today. For more information on today's topic, please visit the website at pausethinkconsider.com/time. And remember, please check out Facebook. You can go to it facebook.com/pause.think.consider or just search for Pause, Think, Consider and interact. Tell us what you think. How do you leverage your time? And I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow on Pause, Think, Consider.